You can be in a crowded room, surrounded by friends, scrolling through messages, laughing at jokes, smiling in photos, and still feel completely alone. Not physically alone, emotionally alone. And the scariest part? Most people who feel this way don't even understand why. They tell themselves, maybe something is wrong with me. Why do I feel empty when I'm not alone? Why do I feel disconnected even with people around me? Today, we're going to break down the real psychology of emotional loneliness. Why you can feel invisible in a crowd, why connection feels missing even in relationships, and why this type of loneliness hurts deeper than being physically alone. This video isn't about weakness. It's about awareness. And by the end, you will understand your feelings in a way you never have before. Let's begin. Section 1. Physical loneliness versus emotional loneliness. Psychology makes a powerful distinction between being alone and feeling alone. Physical loneliness means you don't have people around. Emotional loneliness means you don't feel seen, understood, or connected. Even when people are right in front of you, emotional loneliness is far more painful. Why? Because when you're physically alone, at least your situation matches your feelings. But when you're emotionally lonely in a crowd, your mind experiences confusion and contradiction. Your brain thinks, I shouldn't feel this way, but I do. And that internal conflict creates shame, self-doubt, emotional numbness, deeper isolation. That's why many people say, I feel lonelier in a room full of people than when I'm by myself. 80s. Because alone feels honest, but unseen feels painful. Section 2. Feeling unseen is the core of loneliness. The human brain is not wired just for survival. It is wired for connection. From birth, your nervous system is searching for eye contact, emotional validation, safety, understanding, belonging. When these needs are missing, the brain doesn't just feel sad, it feels threatened. Because for ancient humans, being emotionally disconnected from the group meant death. That ancient fear still lives in your nervous system today. So when you talk to people but don't feel understood, when you share but feel unheard, when you're present but feel ignored, your brain interprets it as, I am not emotionally safe here, and that creates loneliness, even if the room is full. Section 3. Why you can feel lonely in relationships. One of the most confusing experiences in life is feeling lonely with someone you love. You might sleep next to someone, talk to them every day, share a life with them, yet still feel emotionally abandoned. Psychology explains this as emotional disconnection, not physical absence. You feel lonely in a relationship when your emotions are dismissed, your thoughts are ignored, your needs feel inconvenient, your vulnerability is not met with care for, your inner world is not welcomed. You may be together, but you are not emotionally met. And the brain does something painful in this situation. It starts blaming itself. Am I too needy? Am I too sensitive? Why am I not enough? But the truth is this: you don't feel lonely because you're broken. You feel lonely because your emotional needs are not being reached. Love without emotional safety still feels like loneliness. Section 4. Childhood emotional neglect and adult loneliness. Many people who feel lonely in crowds grew up feeling lonely in childhood, even if their home looked normal from the outside. This is known as emotional neglect. It doesn't mean abuse. It doesn't mean abandonment. It means your emotions were not deeply seen, validated, or guided. You may have been fed, clothed, protected, but emotionally, you were left alone. When that happens, the child learns, my feelings don't matter. I shouldn't express what I feel. I have to handle everything by myself. That belief doesn't disappear with age. It simply grows quieter and deeper. As an adult, you may struggle to open up, feel disconnected even with people, fear being a burden town, hide your real emotions, smile while feeling empty. You learned how to survive without being emotionally held. And now, even when people are around, your nervous system still feels alone. Not because anyone is doing something wrong today, but because your brain learned loneliness early. Section 5. Overthinking creates inner isolation. Overthinking is one of the strongest predictors of emotional loneliness. When your mind is constantly analyzing what someone meant, what you should have said, whether people secretly judge you whether you said too much, whether you're being annoying, whether you belong, you aren't truly present with others. You are present with your thoughts. And the more you live inside your head, the more distant the world begins to feel. Overthinkers often feel lonely not because they lack people, but because their minds never let them fully relax into connection. Their body is in the room, but their mind is somewhere else, protecting, calculating, preparing, and connection requires safety. When the mind never feels safe, loneliness becomes a constant background noise. Section 6. Why social media increases loneliness. This may surprise you. The more digitally connected we've become, the lonelier people feel. Social media shows you filtered happiness, perfect relationships, constant success, endless friendships, curated lives. Your brain compares your real life to their edited life, and comparison always creates emotional distance. You start feeling behind, unseen, less valued as disconnected, invisible. You see everyone together while you feel alone. And because everyone looks busy being happy, you feel like you are the only one struggling. So you don't speak. You don't reach out. You don't share. And loneliness deepens quietly. Section 7. Why highly sensitive and deep thinkers feel lonelier. Highly sensitive people often feel lonelier than others, not because they are weak, but because they feel more deeply. They notice tone. They notice silence. They notice energy. They notice emotional shifts. They crave meaningful conversation, emotional honesty, deep connection, genuine presence. But much of the world lives on the surface. Small talk, distraction, noise, entertainment. So when a deep thinker enters shallow spaces, they feel unseen, unmatched, unmet. They may be surrounded by people, yet still feel emotionally alone because their depth is not being met. This is not a flaw. It is a mismatch. Section 8. The pain of being the strong one. Many people who feel lonely in crowds are the same people everyone depends on. The listener, the helper, the supporter, the problem solver, the shoulder to cry on. They carry everyone else's emotions, but no one carries theirs. Why? Because they appear strong. So nobody checks on the strong one. Nobody asks if they're okay. Nobody suspects they're hurting. They smile. They function. They help. They survive. Alone. And over time, they begin to feel invisible in plain sight. Loneliness doesn't always come from being abandoned. Sometimes it comes from being needed, but not nurtured. Section 9. Why you feel loneliest at night. Many people say their loneliness is strongest at night. Psychology explains this clearly. At night, distractions fade, noise quiets, responsibilities pause. Your mind has nothing left to avoid, and unresolved emotions rise. You replay conversations. You feel the absence. You notice the silence. You feel the emotional gaps in your life. Daytime protects you with busyness. Nighttime confronts you with truth. That's why loneliness feels heavier in the dark, because there is nothing left to distract you from it. Section 10. Why? Fake smiles increase loneliness. Smiling when you are sad may protect others from discomfort, but it increases your own isolation. Every time you hide what you feel, your brain learns, my real self is not welcome. And when your real self feels unwelcome, loneliness becomes internal. You may be talking, but you're not being known. You may be laughing, but you're not being seen. You may be loved, but not as your true self. And that kind of hidden living always leads to emotional loneliness. Section 11. You don't feel lonely because you're unlovable. This is one of the most important truths in this entire video. You do not feel lonely because you are broken. You feel lonely because you are human. Loneliness is not a personality flaw. It is a nervous system signal. It is your brain saying, I need deeper connection. I need to be seen. I need to feel emotionally safe. And needing connection is not weakness. It is biology. Section 12. How emotional loneliness changes the brain. Long-term emotional loneliness affects memory, focus, sleep, emotional regulation, trust, attachment, anxiety levels, self-worth. The brain begins to expect disconnection, so it becomes guarded, hyper-alert, protective, withdrawn, not because you want to be distant, but because your nervous system learned that closeness is unreliable. This is why emotionally lonely people often pull away just when they crave closeness, test others unintentionally, fear, depending on people, feel tired in relationships, want connection but fear it at the same time. A final message: you are not alone in this. Feeling lonely in a crowd doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means something inside you wants truth, connection, depth, safety, meaning. And those are not weaknesses. They are signs of emotional intelligence. One day, you will meet people who don't just see your smile, but see your silence too. Who don't just enjoy your presence, but understand your inner world. And when that happens, you will finally realize you were never truly alone. You were just waiting to be seen.